few days ago, I pulled out a book that I have gotten into the habit of pulling out this time of year. It's called How Like an Angel Came I Down, Conversations with Children on the Gospels by Amos Bronson Alcott. You may recognize the name Alcott. His daughter, Louisa May, would go on to write Little Women, a beloved classic still, especially this time of year. In 1835, Amos Bronson Alcott set up a classroom called the Temple School in Boston. Mr. Alcott was a teacher who at the time taught with unconventional methods. He talked with them. He practiced an elementary form of inquiry. They wondered, they pondered together. They asked one another questions. They followed whatever thread might be weaving its way through the conversation, without correction, without judgment, without shaping the answers as one thought they ought to be. And so I invite us to hear some voices of children reflecting on the story, the Christmas story of Jesus' birth. So imagine it's like a one-room schoolhouse. And there's Mr. Alcott and Ms. Peabody. She's the recorder of the conversations and also a teacher. And there's a group of elementary-aged children, girls and boys. And so Mr. Alcott reads one of the versions of the Christmas story as presented in the Gospel of Luke. This is all verbatim. One conversation after another in the book. He read it twice because the children requested to hear it a second time. And then he simply asked for their thoughts. And he names them by name. Lucy shares, remember, she's just heard the story. I was interested in the angels coming. They brought Jesus in on a chariot. He brought with him a Bible clasped with diamonds. He had diamonds on his head, and Mary kissed him. I love our imagination. So Mr. Alcott asked, do the rest think Jesus was brought by the angels? Josiah goes, I don't know how he came. Nathan goes, Mary carried him into the barn, but I do not know where she got him. Mr. Alcott goes, do any of you think you were delivered by angels to your mothers? Emma responds, the body was in the spirit. After angels bring the spirit, the body grows out of it, as the rose opens out of the bud. William chimes in, the mother has something to do with the making of the body. Several respond, so I should think. So Mr. Alcott asks, well, what is birth? Charles responds, putting the spirit into a body and having the body put round the spirit. Now, while this may be an appropriate story to indicate how important comprehensive sexuality education starting at a young age is essential, for which I am an advocate, it is also plain and simple, wise and profound definition of incarnation. Neither cute nor quaint. I'm not talking about a doctrine of incarnation. It is often because I think of the focus on doctrine of incarnation within Christianity that those of us who identify with liberal religious thought, we just avoid even addressing or using the word incarnation. But I think there's something to a more expansive definition of incarnation, separate from any religious doctrine, but more true to its etymology, to the roots of the word. Embodied in flesh, the act of manifesting something in bodily form, in human form. as Charles said, putting the spirit into a body and having the body put round the spirit. Well, what about the mind, one might ask? That's what we value, the mind. As one of my friends is fond of saying, there is a reason why my head is attached to the rest of me. The thing is, most of us tend to take up residence in our mind and never take a walk outside. And we spend a lot of our time living in our minds only, and minds then often turn into talking heads, and there's quite frankly a danger of thinking too much. The two readings I shared earlier, the reading from the Gospel of John and Carter Hayward's piece on love and justice, are more about the mystical experience of love rather than a mental experience of it. By mystical, philosophers mean a direct experience of an ultimate reality. What could be a more direct experience of reality than love in these human forms? One of my teachers used to say that the greatest distance we travel in our lifetimes is the distance between our head and our feet. Christianity doesn't have the market on incarnation either. It's simply one, of course, of many paths, many worldviews, many stories in which the divine takes up resonance with humanity. Our need to do this as humans, despite our attempts at explanation, is a great mystery. These stories, though, remind us of our deepest human need to love and be loved, and that in the company of one another in community, we just might have the capacity to do so. Ram Dass, contemporary spiritual teacher, said that we're all just walking each other home. We're all just walking each other home. Some find their way home, that distance from the head to the feet, and the body through pleasure, some through suffering. For it's only for some in pain in the suffering body where the presence of something outside ourselves accompanying us in that pain is of solace. We walk one another home when we massage hand lotion into the age's dry and cracked skin of the hand of a dying loved one. We find our way home when we remember that despite the pain of grief, that a loved one is free of human suffering in those moments after death. We find our way home when heartbeats are in sync, when breaths are dwelling together, when one rests in the arms of a beloved. If we don't experience something of the sacred, something of the divine in the most human of moments in our living and in our dying, then perhaps most of us could agree that we do experience love in those very human moments. That it is in those moments when we most deeply inhabit our bodies where love finds an abode in which to dwell. So, a question for us this Advent is how do we enter Advent? How do we enter these Christmas stories of long ago? How do we experience incarnation? Is it through the shepherds or the angels or the magi or the lights of Diwali or Hanukkah or solstice? Do you see yourself reflected in the light, in these stories, in Mary or Joseph, in sheep or stars? Or can you see someone else reflected in one of those characters? Remembering that we're all just walking each other home. Body and spirit, mind and heart, mystery and knowledge, light and darkness, love and justice are co-conspirators in an eternal dance. And the Advent season is an opportunity to bear witness and to participate in that eternal dance. So what's love got to do with it? What does love look like, sound like, taste like, feel like for you? Who are we helping to walk home this season? I'm less interested in how the Christmas stories make somebody a believer of a particular brand and more interested in how these stories open you, me, us to a multitude of ways for love to express itself in the world, which means for as many people as there are in this room, there are just as many expressions of love. These are the questions we may be called to live this season, all leading to that question that Mary Oliver posits. How do you love this world?